My teaching philosophy is based upon inclusive education and a number of factors contributing towards gaining the most enriching educative experiences possible. Students learn differently. I am equipped to arrange lessons in such a way that all senses are activated. In sculpting in the curriculum based on students' interests and abilities, as well as incorporating a number of resources, learning and assessment tools, my classroom will be an inclusive, successful environment where all students value and respond positively to diversity. In a society where exclusion occurs, individuals can often feel rejected due to having a disability, vulnerability, or diverse needs or interests. It is my aspiration as a teacher to create more inclusive experiences within the curriculum, adopting strategies for differentiating teaching to meet specific learning needs of students across abilities, needs, and vulnerabilities. The AITSL Professional Standard 1.5 explores the importance of differentiating teaching to meet specific learning needs of students across a range of abilities. I aspire for successful differentiating learning experiences, working towards the ultimate goal of creating an inclusive classroom and society. In my recent pre-service teaching placement in a Level 3 and 4 classroom, a personal goal was to create a comfortable and relaxed environment where students could feel comfortable with me and were sufficiently supported in the activities and tasks given. In establishing a classroom with inclusive values from the beginning of the year, students enter the learning space feeling safe and valued. Because of this immediate mutual and valued respect, I could instantly identify who needed extra support in developing both academically and socially, as well as identifying who needed to be challenged and pushed to achieve higher academic levels. Some of the strategies I adopted in my experience as a pre-service teacher were individualising the curriculum, as well as creating individual learning plans to suit students' strengths, as well as support and challenge their weaknesses, enables children to gain confidence and reassurance in their own capabilities. Pinar, cited from Webster and Ryan, discusses the importance of identifying weaknesses and creative alternatives and visions for something further to aspire to. Students with disabilities and vulnerabilities will naturally measure differently to other students. Their progress should not be always measured by specific outcomes, rather by positively engaging with educative experiences. During my pre-service placement, I placed a lot of emphasis on assessment being incorporated into the curriculum. Many conferences, observations, learning conversations took place, and immediate and meaningful feedback was given to the students, which I find to be the most useful and effective assessment for student growth. Each child made some level of improvement, validating the assessment used. Another important approach I was able to gain experience was differentiation by student interest or learning style. I was able to experiment with strategies such as the expert jig puzzle, flexible and strategic grouping, and collaboration stations to enable students to gain positive and enriching educative experiences. These activities were successful in student involvement, sharing and discussion of concepts and knowledge. I have recently completed a sign language course, which has enabled me to communicate and reach visual, auditory and kinesthetic learners. Communication between teachers and learners and peers can both be spoken and non-spoken to provide students with the skills to be engaged and included. As a teacher, it is vital to recognise how to accommodate the students' learning needs by employing a number of strategies to ensure they are not excluded in any way. Students with disabilities, vulnerabilities, and students learning at different levels must not be marginalised but accepted for their differences. Students who are feeling included and involved in their learning can be more engaged through the learning process and more enriched in learning experiences. AITSL Standard 3.4, selecting and using resources, is an engaging and important way of involving students in their learning. Using a number of different learning materials, such as books, independent and guided readers, writing programs, e-learning, worksheets, many forms of technology and ICT, as well as other practical or specialised resources that support student learning outcomes, provide students with another level of support within their learning experiences. Tools such as computers and iPads can be used to support a number of learning activities and that involve student production and communication of knowledge, positioning the learner as a producer, an active community member, at times a teacher. Lynch and Redpath. The incorporation of technology being effectively incorporated into classrooms and learning experiences can be beneficial to the student learning, development and assessment. The use of technology in the classroom is very important for future societies, as our community is vastly becoming dependent on technology and its uses. McClellan discusses, technology is an extension of our bodies. This approach stems from examples of how technology connects with people with disabilities or impairments, as well as those who learn in alternative ways. Relating back to previous paragraphs on the importance of differentiation in our classrooms. Flexibility in teaching materials and the use of multimedia make it possible to reach out to all learning styles. During a pre-service placement last year with a level 1 and 2 classroom, I used multimedia, the smartboard, to guide class discussions, group work projects, video materials, PowerPoints presenting students' work, and establishing success criteria with students. Links to other websites and YouTube channels also provided additional representations of the topics discussed. The internet also provides opportunities to employ many different entry points to learning, which enables students to become involved in a lesson from the get-go. These are another resource that, when selected correctly, are a rich and valuable learning and teaching tool. There are many literacy programs and resources related to literacy and provide students with the interest and love for reading. During a recent pre-service placement in a 3 and 4 classroom, many programs such as the Daily 5 and Cafe were used in the classroom as a tool for improving many components of reading and literacy. I was able to establish routines and instill a love of reading into most of the students when they selected a Just Right book. Students were constantly presenting book reviews, character studies and summaries, which reflected their improved skills of reading and literacy. The E5 instructional model is a framework incorporating the domains of engage, explore, explain, elaborate and evaluate. The ICT is valuable and flexible in that it can be used in any stage of the E5 instructional model. In my experience, I find ICT to be most useful in the engage stage, as I find ICT to be beneficial for engaging students at the beginning of lessons and at the start of units. The explain stage can also be benefit from ICT, as content needs to be represented in multiple ways, ensuring students learning in different ways and at different levels are all involved. ICT in the evaluate stage of the model can also be useful in providing students with different resources and materials to share and present their knowledge and support all learners. Teachers using a wide range of stimulating and exciting materials to teach the concepts outlined in the curriculum are ensuring that all students are actively involved in their learning. In order to provide students with inclusive and engaging educative experiences, teachers must plan and create quality curriculum and learning experiences, which stems from assessment. Assessment helps to establish strengths and weaknesses and create learning and teaching experiences which will empower both the teacher and students. Designing learning sequences and lessons plans should be carefully planned and student-centered to create involved, engaged, and inclusive environments. In a recent pre-service placement, I was able to practice and enhance my skills in planning, creating, and pursuing quality and authentic assessment. Fountas and Pinnell Benchmark Assessment is a literacy-based system which was used at the beginning of the year as an accurate and valid assessment of students' reading and comprehension. Fountas and Pinnell contributed towards developing independent and instructional reading levels as well as pre-assessment for grouping students appropriately. Reading conferences are another literacy-based assessment that allowed me to provide ongoing feedback to students. Conferencing can be used to assess features such as fluency, pace, comprehension and other strategies. In this time, teachers can work closely with students and set achievable and relevant goals. Reading conferences were completed regularly to support and challenge students' reading capabilities and ensure we are implementing the necessary support for the student. Learner profiles guide teachers in understanding and viewing students' growth and development in learning. During the third and fourth weeks of Term 1, a conference with the classroom teacher, parent, student and myself was conducted as an informal assessment of students' progress and well-being. The conversations were important to guide teacher and parent knowledge of the child's growth, interests, learning styles and preferences and assess social and academic strengths and areas of need. Students were assessed on their spelling and phonemic awareness using a spelling inventory earlier in the year. The students' spelling errors appeared to be a mixture of phonetic components and noticeable visual features of words. Patterns were established, which meant students could be placed in groups focusing on words with difficult vowels, bases, and endings. Students were then placed strategically into groups where they were able to practice their areas of need and with the support of students with similar patterns. I planned and implemented 3-week units in reading, information text, writing, narratives, writing information reports, spelling, handwriting, time, and inquiry into the gold rush, based on these and other forms of assessment. Each planner included AusVals, learning focus and standards, vocabulary development, a range of engaging resources and materials, assessment as, of, and for learning, and lesson objectives, activities, and reflections for each lesson. The assessment as, of, and for learning took the form of observational checklists, written and visual work samples, class discussions, strategy groups, conferences, and post-tests in order for the students to represent their learning. The purpose of formative observation is to determine the degree of mastery of a given learning task and pinpoint the part that is not yet mastered. Bloom and Hastings. Assessment should help in inspiring students to devise goals that are attainable, measurable, and challenging. Quality assessment reflects quality learning and teaching. I found the sequences to be successful, and I gained many skills in challenging and adapting lessons based on students' eagerness and level of understanding. The data collected from the observations and assessment of learning provided me with measurable data, which I was able to use as evidence in presenting student achievement to my mentor teacher, who used it in parent reports and interviews. The data was also used to plan future learning sequences. The ATEL Standard 2.3 discusses the use of the curriculum, assessment and reporting of knowledge to design learning sequences and lessons plan. I gained the skills and experience during my pre-service placement to use authentic assessment and to develop a range of strategies to create quality learning experiences and establish a curriculum which is inclusive, engaging, and holds rich educative value throughout all strands of learning.